Yes, I have.
Great. Okay, let's get cracking then. Hi everyone, my name is Inaya and I'm a University Liaison Coordinator here at inState. Just a few housekeeping points, if you all wouldn't mind keeping your microphones on mute if you're not talking. Also, this event will be recorded, so members in the audience, if you wouldn't like your faces to be recorded, please feel free to keep your cameras off. Just a little introduction about inState. We are a student-led social mobility organisation whose mission is to broaden access for state school-educated university students for corporate pathways. This includes commercial law, consulting, and finance. As a group of university students who have faced similar challenges throughout our academic journeys, we recognise the need to tackle the inherent inequalities that state school students have to navigate when trying to access the corporate sphere. And so, since our very beginning, we have worked extremely hard to widen and improve the representation of state school educated pupils through various specialized programs aimed at understanding and unleashing their full potential. However, in order to tackle the systematic issues that continue to restrict state school access to corporate spaces, it is important that we look beyond what inState can tangibly offer and consider how we can best contribute and influence the discourse surrounding social mobility. And that is why we are proud to announce our Accessing Corporate Spaces event this evening. The first of many activities our newly formed policy team wished to accomplish as part of our wider goal to improve social mobility for state school educated university students. Now, without further ado, could our speakers please introduce themselves and tell us a few words about what social mobility means to you? If we could please start with Jonathan first.
Hello everyone, my name's Jonathan Cooper. So a bit about me, I'm a future trainee at Allen & Overy, and I'm currently doing the GDL, or the PGDL as it's currently known. I took a year off before starting the GDL, during which I worked at Rare Recruitment, an organisation some of you might have heard about, where I was involved in, helping a huge array of students getting into law careers. In terms of what social mobility means to me, I think especially from my experience at Rare, it's really about leveling the playing field, not just for the sake of doing so, but actually because by widening access to various careers and jobs, you actually benefit as a company or an employer. You get a more diverse range of potential applicants. You get to draw from a variety of unique life experiences. So that's how I see social mobility.
Great, thank you. Rahina, if you would like to go next, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Rahina Begum and I currently work at a charity called SEO London, where we support students who come from either a BAME or low socioeconomic background gain careers within various different industries. And the team that I work in, we support students gain careers within investment banking or asset management. Just to give you a little bit of context, I guess, into my background, I studied history at Queen Mary. I didn't do the GDL like a lot of the panelists today, although I did consider it. So probably a good thing I didn't, given that you guys seem a bit stressed. But yes, I studied history at Queen Mary. I was born and brought up in East London. And I then went on off the back of Queen Mary. I did a little bit of teaching. I had a little bit of experience within a CSR at a Japanese bank and insurance firm, and then I joined SEO London. In terms of what social mobility means to me, I guess I would say it's about helping, especially at SEO London, it's about helping students achieve their full potential regardless of what their economic background is. And kind of in turn with what Jonathan said, it's about leveling the playing field so that you can, regardless of what your background is, what university you went to, you can still achieve as much as as much as your ability is. I'll pass back to you, Naya.
Great, thank you. Tashan, if you'd like to go next, please.
Hey everyone, so my name is Tashan Dwyer. I'm actually a third seat trainee at A&O. In terms of background, so like you guys, standard state school educated, did law undergrad, enjoyed that, had a year out, sort of worked out what I wanted to do. now in the sector and the corporate sector particularly. And alongside working at A&O, I'm trying to raise awareness on the corporate sector and legal sector. So like try and do quite a few informative YouTube videos, some workshops, and have an Insta, which is really open-minded, but still informative, to try and bridge the gap between you guys at home, you guys in your community, and the city.
Great, thank you. If we could have Matthew next, please.
Hi everyone. Yeah, my name's Matthew Berrick. I'm a future trainee at Pinsent Masons, and I'm also currently on the GDL. And I'm the founder of the Legal Lineup, which is like a group of 7 future trainees at international magic circle firms, all from different backgrounds, BAME, overseas, and they kind of all share our experiences. And social mobility to me sort of means bringing together different perspectives and knowledge to kind of diversify the workshop and workforce and ensure that students kind of have the tools to pursue the careers they want to pursue, whatever that be. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And last but not least, Rukayat, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Rukayat. I currently work at KPMG. I've been working here for 2.5 years straight out of university. Social mobility for me means widening access for lower socioeconomic students or people to gain access into like the professional services space. And I would attribute a lot of where I am today to do with a lot of the social mobility services that I use. So someone mentioned Rare Recruitment, SEO London, these are organizations I'm familiar with, and Social Mobility Foundation, SMF.
Great, thank you so much, everyone. I guess to start off the panel, I'd like to talk a little bit about your experiences. So Jonathan, Tashan, and Rukayat, did you face any obstacles entering your professions? And if so, how did you go about overcoming these obstacles?
Oh, go on, you go first if you like.
Go ahead, you start.
Like all of us, I'm pretty sure we've all faced obstacles. I think the biggest one for me was my identity and being able to reconcile having dreadlocks and then trying to go into a space where I'm like, no one looks like me. And then working out, okay, like, do I need to cut my hair? Do I need to talk a certain way? Do I need to, I don't know, understand golf and skiing, etc. So my biggest challenge was like being able to reconcile myself and my identity and then put my best foot forward and not toning down myself and just put my best foot forward personally.
I would say it's quite similar, actually. I would say it's more about confidence. Naturally, I saw myself as an outsider. I didn't really believe I would be able to enter these spaces. And so I guess what really helped me was actually a lot of the preparation that was provided with the organization. So SMF and SEO London really helped prepare me. And it just made me focus less on myself and more about my abilities and not what I look like coming into this space.
Yeah, pretty much just to reiterate what both of my colleagues have said. I think, yeah, confidence and not really seeing people like me in many of these spaces. And I think, yeah, again, to reiterate Rukayat, I was very fortunate in that I did find help in organizations such as Rare, which told me first of all what the careers are about, but also gave me the confidence and tools to actually do okay in an interview.
Great, thank you. So going on to about social mobility organizations, I guess the key to success of any social mobility organization is a clear direct goal or vision. With that being said, Rahina and Jonathan, what do you think the main things Rare and SEO London are trying to tackle, and what are the biggest drivers of social immobility? Rahina, if you'd like to start, maybe.
Yep, so sorry, can I break that question again? What's the biggest goals that SEO are trying to achieve?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. So yes, at SEO London, essentially what we want to do is we want to increase diversity within these corporate spaces, and we want to help students, first of all, be educated around the different careers that are out there. You know, a lot of students that we come across, they don't really know about all the different options that are out there, which means that they end up going into careers which maybe they could have had, you know, even bigger ambitions if they were just aware of kind of the different opportunities that were available. So that's one of the things that we do in terms of we educate the students about what is available for them. The second thing that we do is that we train the students. So in order for we don't want it to be a case that just because you come from a diverse or low social mobility background, that you have been given a free space into any of these opportunities. You are just as good and equally as good. And we train you to be that as well. So we will support students through application processes. We will support them in their interviews, in the way they present themselves on their CV, and we will support them in increasing their technical knowledge about whichever division it is that they want to go into. And the third thing that we do is, so after educating and training, is we really support the student in making sure that they excel in whatever opportunity that they get. So hopefully now that they're in the industry, and we're really happy that they're there, we still want to be there for them as a community, and so that they can progress in their fields, whether that's going from an analyst to an associate to a director, whatever that happens to be, and it's still being part of, you're still keeping them in the community and hopefully getting them to act as representation for future SEO London candidates who are going through the same cycle as them. But ultimately, we want to be able to increase diversity of ethnic minority candidates, diversity of those coming from low social mobility candidates, so low social mobility background in these corporate careers, whether it be banking, law, technology, corporates, etc.
Great, thank you so much. Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just I guess, for what I guess Rare does, from my experience working there, very much similar aims in terms of working on diversity and inclusivity within workplaces. I think you can pretty much split Rare's work into two halves. So the first half, which I was very much more familiar with, was working with candidates applying for commercial law, consulting, investment banking jobs, etc. And similarly providing support across the application process with online forms, interviews, and the like. And I think separately, Rare's also, there's a team which is quite focused on looking into the mechanics of these sorts of application processes. So, for example, Rare was, behind the contextual recruitment system, which I know, I'd definitely be asked to mention, which essentially, when candidates apply to various jobs, the system ensures that their grades are put into a given context. So to give an example, two students get, I guess, A star, AA. Using the CRS system, you might then factor into how maybe one student went to a school where the average A-level grade was DDD, whereas another student went to a school where the average was A star, AA. Using that system, employers would be able to take that into account. Hopefully, a step towards inclusivity for those students who maybe didn't go to such high achieving schools.
Great, thank you. Do any of our other speakers have anything they'd like to add?
I could piggyback on end of that as well. So at A&O, we also work over, as you guys know, and a massive part of it as well is really training and teaching those in decision-making roles what it looks like to be diverse, and teaching some of the unconscious biases, etc., and how to iron out that process. So there's a bottom end in terms of like student-wise, and people wanting to get into the sector, but then there's a top-down approach as well, trying to train these guys and hold their hand, so the future of their firm or their companies is more inclusive and is more representative. So there's two ends to that.
Great, thank you. Going off of that question, Tashan and Rukayat, throughout your academic journeys, you have both been able to interact with SMOs such as Rare and SEO London. Can you tell us a little bit about what your experience has been like with SMOs and how much they've aided you in your journeys?
Sure, I think I'm going to go first. I would attribute a lot of where I am today actually to being involved with those organizations. So for example, for SMF, Social Mobility Foundation, I was able to speak to some, so when I applied for the graduate scheme at KPMG, they were able to put me in touch with someone that already works at KPMG. And so I was able to ask some questions, which was to ask about like the application process that was able to assist. I was able to have a mock interview and they were able to like provide me with like a resource document to help me prepare for these interviews. So they really like gave me a head start that I probably would have had no access to, that other people might have had access to because they might know people already in the field and I know nobody, or yeah, they might have networks and connections like that. So it's just been extremely helpful, and I would like recommend just reaching out. And they provide opportunities for like work experience, mentoring and buddy schemes and the likes of.
Similarly, I was part of Rare's articles program, so it's some sort of thing. You go to different law firms, different open days, etc. But for me personally, for anyone who goes to Rare or a similar organization, I think it really allowed me to look within myself and understand how the capabilities and extract my skill set, and also iron out some things which I can work on. So I remember, I don't know, when I first went to Rare, I had to buy my suit for the first time. Little things like that, just picking up a lot of social skills which I may not have had prior to being in these organizations, and understand that was valid, I think was the most important thing, alongside all the mechanisms they put in place for you. Because undoubtedly, without Rare recruitment, I wouldn't have got a TC as quickly as I did, i.e. whilst I was at university.
Great, thank you. Do any of the other speakers have anything they'd like to add about their experience with SMLs?
After I graduated and I went into teaching, I decided that teaching wasn't for me anymore, and I actually got involved in this charity called East London Business Alliance, otherwise known as ELBA. So they are a social mobility organisation who help mostly graduates. They are East London based, so they do work with a lot of people in East London, but even outside of East London, they do work with students there. But I think, yeah, it was because of ELBA that I was able to secure my role at MUFG within the CSR team, which then off the back of that, when I left, I was able to get a CSR role at Liberty, the insurance place. So really do take up, these organizations really do take up their support, and I would say be really proactive as well about finding out what organizations are out there, because I hadn't heard about ELBA other than my friend telling me. But actually, I should have been a bit more proactive, and maybe I could have looked online and seen what was there. But just have more conversations with your peers, see what resources they're using, and use them as well.
Great, thank you so much. I guess the next question is addressed to Matthew. I mean, it's not every day someone gets to say that they're an author. Your book, Legal Insider, graced the pages of the Financial Times and ranked #1 on Amazon's bestseller list for law for the layperson. But I guess a lesser fact known about the book is that you intend for all royalties and proceeds to go towards a scholarship that will aid disadvantaged students that cannot afford the GDL or the LBC. I just wanted to know what was the driving force behind this decision?
Yeah, cheers. Cheers. Well, so I've kind of been in this space since I secured a TC, like helping students and producing big free documents, like hundreds of pages long, of like what I learned in different insight days and this and that. And then I secured a TC, and once you do that, like they sort of offer to pay for your GDL and LPC. And I've been producing all these big documents, and so I wanted to develop my own knowledge. So I was DMing loads of different people on LinkedIn, like trying to reach out to loads of different people to kind of collate one big document kind of thing, which is like what it's like to work in this department, and just build my own knowledge really. And then I thought I could kind of sell that, raise some money, and then give it to someone who would need it for the GDL, because obviously you can't really self-fund it. And that's kind of where it came from, because I sort of felt like I was fortunate enough to either be able to pay for it myself or get the firm to pay for it for me. So I thought I could do something positive. And so, yeah, that's where it came from.
Oh, I think it's such a great initiative. So I'm sure that most of you here know that the high rewarding occupations, especially those in the corporate sphere, are largely dominated by individuals from a certain background, and those who are not from such a background have a, I say, confidence barrier. And so I think it's become ever more vital that firms promote a convincing message of inclusivity. So I guess one of the ways in which this has been done is through the implementation of diversity and inclusion targets. With that being said, what are your views on targets being used by institutions and corporate spaces to tackle diversity in the workplace? Rukayat, would you like to start on this one?
Sure. I have like two opinions on this. First, I think I guess it's necessary to, if we want to be proactive about like meeting these goals, if we want to say that we want to get X amount of people from certain ethnic backgrounds within senior positions. So I guess the field that I'm in currently at the moment, a lot of the discussions we're having is about, we are getting people in the door. Now the issue is about senior leadership. We're not seeing enough Black representatives in senior leadership. We are seeing them within middle management and junior positions. And so I think to help this if we're working within a system, then I think sometimes we do need to operate on a system with regards to that system. And so it does help to have those diversity targets in place. I think it's important though for the system to stress that diversity targets does not take away from meritocracy. We're still focusing on the quality of applicants that are getting into the spaces that they are, but we do recognize that there is an issue with getting those numbers in, and as such, we're going to put those numbers in place to make sure that we achieve it, and you can measure it, which helps. I guess the other effect is sometimes I do think it can create like an imposter syndrome within like the actual people that get into those places. You don't want to feel as though you've got into the place you are in because of a target on your head. And I think that's more so I guess the ethos that I take is that like, yes, there are targets in place, but I will use this to the best of my ability, and I'll be able to show my strengths through the work that I'm going to perform. Because I know I'm a high performer, and I am of good quality. I just haven't been able to be in these positions. And now that there's opportunity for me to be in the positions, let me make the most of it. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to add anything?
I'd agree with a lot of what Rukayat said. You do need those targets in place in order for the situation and diversity to get better within the workplace. I do think diversity targets, I do think there is a lot of positives to come from them. But I think for firms, when they do have diversity targets, they have to think about other things as well, as in, yes, you've got the diversity in your workplace now, but how are you going to retain them? Because you don't want to bring in a diverse group and then have them be in the workplace and it not be very inclusive, because then that diversity will just leave within 1 to 3 years most likely. So yeah, I think it's a good first step, but I think firms do have to take a lot of other things into consideration as well in order to keep that diversity and be able to like grow it and enhance it.
I was gonna literally add, similar to what you're saying, yes, keep them, yes, retain them, but there needs to be an investment of resources of also upskilling these people. So once they're in, of course, you can encourage them. You can say, go in front of this client, we value X, Y, Z. But if there's been 18 years, 21 years worth of inequity in this person's life, you need to upskill them and invest in them. And over time, they will stay because they have the confidence to do so and have the skill set to do so. And also, alongside quotas, there needs to be like real mechanisms to keep people there and put people in these places. So, for instance, at my firm, we had a target around like BME people and particularly Black people. But now the conversation is what mechanisms are in place? So would it be a scholarship proposal? Will it be some form of mentoring? But real mechanisms which we can point to, which put people there, and then which also upskill these people so they actually are suitable to stay there long term. So there's so many heads we need to tackle this from.
Okay, thank you. Any more thoughts? No? Okay. I guess I'd like to turn the conversation more towards COVID-19. And so it's been well over a year since the advent of COVID-19. And since then, the pandemic has already had a considerable impact on the economy and the job market. So in your opinion, how do you think COVID-19 has impacted social mobility into corporate careers?
I think the biggest space might be with regards to securing like internships or work experience and the likes of. That's kind of what I picture might be really affected at the moment, which is where I would like really encourage students to like really be on LinkedIn, just find people you can connect with, and it might just be smaller scale experiences. I think everyone's aware of the adversity of the pandemic, and as such, any movements to try to create an opportunity for yourself will be much appreciated. I think the positive side is that this this time period breeds a lot of creativity for people. So think about how you can be creative in searching for experience to get into these like professional spaces.
I had a comment to build on that, I guess, if that's cool. But I think like what's really important, at least what I found anyway, and obviously we're all from different backgrounds and stuff, but I feel like whenever I spoke about maybe having like a legal experience, it was kind of like less valuable than talking about something that where I had a lot of responsibility. So I think drawing upon things that you've had like a lot of responsibility in doing is always like the best way to demonstrate your skills to any employer and show that you're an asset. So I think for me anyway, it was less about talking about my legal internships where I was photocopying and more about like talking about when I played for a rugby team or whatever I did, and kind of built on that, on those kind of soft skills was kind of helpful for me. But that's just my experience.
Yeah, just to build on that, again, from my experience at Rare, that is 100% the case. Employers, are really appreciative of, from my perspective, non-legal experiences. One of my colleagues I know, he worked at McDonald's, for example, for 2 years, and that filled quite a large portion of his interview for an investment bank, because you don't realize that from these sorts of roles, the number of skills you can showcase, you've got the respect and trust of a boss or manager, teamwork skills, long hours, difficult customers, etc. So I think I'd stress that maybe if there are difficulties with getting internships, etc. Even just part-time jobs, everything are incredibly attractive to prospective employers.
Yeah, I think as well, like I think people maybe underestimate, like people sort of talk about having commercial awareness as kind of like a thing, but like people don't realize where you can actually build commercial awareness is like working for a business, whether it's McDonald's, a bar or whatever. You can kind of build experience of the commercial world at any level. So yeah, I completely agree with talking about non-legal experiences and stuff like that.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else anyone else would like to add? No? Okay. So I guess Rahina and Jonathan, you both work in or have worked in SMOs. And a question for you two, or if anyone else would like to answer, is have you seen a disparity between the ways in which students located in the north of England are supported compared to students in the south of England?
As someone who's just come from Manchester, sorry, I feel strong about the north. So I went to University of Manchester. I worked in Manchester for a year, and I was a born and bred Londoner. As someone who moved to the north, I think there is a disparity in regards to the support that is provided. I think naturally a large part in that is the fact that like London is seen as like the financial hub, and there are a number of like big organizations based in the south. And that might reflect the number of opportunities provided to people within the south. But yes, to answer your question, I do think there is a big disparity between the south and the north.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rahina, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would agree as well. There is a big disparity. It's actually a space that SEO London want to go into more, and the likelihood is that we probably will be doing more with the North over the next coming years. But there definitely is a big disparity. What was the second part of that question? Or should I just leave it as yes? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Oopsies. Yeah, that was basically the question. Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
I think all I would add is, again, from personal experience, I think, although not a complete trend, when I have worked with maybe some students who are from the north, I have noticed that confidence has maybe been a bit more of an issue, and I think that probably is in relation to some of the factors that we've already mentioned. Maybe the lack of opportunities or the lack of early mentorship or support. So I think that's from my experience. I've noticed that.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to add anything to this question? No. I guess I'd like to turn the focus to Matthew. I mean, you're a future trainee at St Masons, which in the UK alone has almost 10 offices, included offices in Aberdeen, Belfast, Birmingham, and London. So what made you decide? What made you decide to apply to this firm outside the London-based Magic Circle firms?
Straight to the interview questions. I love it. Well, so I was at Leeds University, and I was going to all these different open days, all these different insight schemes and careers fairs, which I guess is a bit different now because obviously everything's online. But yeah, I kind of just shopped around, had a look at everything, and to be honest, like St Masons for me was really kind of like where my interest lied, mainly because their focus was with technology, which is kind of what a lot of people say when they're applying to all of these different firms. But for me, like they've got really cool clients like Google and opportunities to do secondments like that. I also had the opportunity to go work overseas. So doing an overseas secondment wasn't necessarily a main driver for me, which maybe some other firms like Magic Circle you might get. But I know in the future, maybe I'd want to do a client secondment, which is something you can do at St Masons. And also having spoken to a lot of people at the firm, I did find them really approachable and really open. And just, you know, I mean, from going around the careers fairs and stuff, it was really just where I was able to kind of have a chat with someone and get on really well with them, which is really important. And you can't really like force that. It's, for me, in my opinion, like you kind of go to all these different stands, and, you know, it's really important to kind of, whether it's virtual or not, get on with the people there, and you know, follow up with them and stay in touch with them. And to be honest with you, anytime I've tried to reach out to anyone at the firm whilst on a vacation scheme before or after, I've had like good responses. Obviously, sometimes you get aired or ignored, but yeah, I find it like a really approachable firm, and yeah.
Great, thank you so much. I'd like to turn the conversation to more about the representation of women. I mean, women are greatly underrepresented, and the progress in tackling gender-related issues such as the gender pay gap have been painfully slow. But nonetheless, with COVID-19 and the sudden move to working from home has helped realize new possibilities. Now, with that being said, I mean, Rukayat or Rahina, what do you think the future looks like for women in post-pandemic Britain? If you'd like to start. Or Rukayat?
Post-pandemic. So, okay, so I guess at the moment and in the last few years, we have been talking about gender more. We've been talking about diversity more, especially in the space of like Black heritage candidates or Black heritage employees. And we've also been speaking about social mobility more. So I think given that we're having these discussions more, it means there's like greater awareness, and through awareness, you'll have more actions. So if anything, I would say that I would hope that there's more positives to come out of post-pandemic, just because of the fact that we're, you know, even though there is a pandemic going on and there is a lot of economic instability, the fact that we're having these discussions is definitely a good first step. So I would definitely see that as the positive. In terms of post-pandemic, in terms of like females progressing after post-pandemic. Yeah, okay, I think the fact that we're having these conversations is definitely going to aid that progression. I think the fact that we work, like, you know, the way you work is different as well. The fact that you know, the environment has changed and not everyone is expected in the office. I think that is a key thing that does impact women quite a lot in terms of, you know, working and home life balance, etc. So I definitely think post-pandemic, if employers are taking those topics and looking into them more, there's definitely things that they can do to support their their female employees. And then I think one of the things as well, like post-pandemic, I feel like as if like when it just comes to like generally people and progressing, I feel like post-pandemic, are we gonna be as social? I feel like as if our soft skills would have taken a hit in the pandemic, but maybe that's a different topic. But yeah, I feel like as if it's going to be weird. Not weird, it's going to be different. I think it's going to be different after the post-pandemic. But I think we will, as things get back to normal and, you know, more firms are taking a hybrid approach in terms of working from home and working in the office. I feel like it'll be, yeah, we should be stronger coming out than before, because I know there's a lot of firms where they would never have considered letting you work from home, and the fact that you're forced to do it now, they're like, oh, actually things do work, and oh, you do work from home when you're, you know, you don't have to be right next to us in order for you to do your work. And I think there's a lot of positives to come out of that. I'll pass over to Rukayat.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I guess I'm looking at it within my firm. Luckily, we have been able to work from home prior to the pandemic, so it's not necessarily new to us, but it's not been to the same capacity. When I think about the benefits for women would be that, so I work within consulting, and a large part in that is there's a lot of traveling to client sites. So you're used to living in like hotels Monday to Friday. I think what's helped a lot is that having this hybrid approach. So now that our clients are able to realize that a lot of this on-site visits can actually occur online, allows for people that just want to raise a family to be based in one location more often. So you get that more of that family time. Flexible working has been like a key topic discussed within the pandemic, and we're seeing that it is able to work. So the conversations that we're having internally within a firm is that we understand like parents need, they have like specific tasks that need to be performed, and allowing your hours to flex around that. I think also like part-time working is, I want to use the word becoming normalized. I think it's I'm starting to see women in senior leadership who do work part-time and it's not frowned upon. So I see that being another benefit. And I think as well, I know it's meant to be focused on women, but I do think this has allowed us to think more about like men and with regards to like their paternity leave as well. So I'm seeing a lot of changes with regards to like the amount of time that is afforded to men to assist with caring duties as well.
Great, thank you. Do any of the other speakers have anything to add? If not, I'd like to turn the conversation to something I think all of our audience can relate to, and that is imposter syndrome. So what I'd like to ask you all is, have any of you experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, how have you overcome it? Tashan, if you'd like to start on this question.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most of us on the panel would have. How did I tackle it myself? Alongside like realizing, yes, I'm good enough, also being honest with myself and working out, okay, yeah, I'm good enough, but I have certain weaknesses and A, B, and C. And actually working on my weaknesses, I felt more holistic. So when it came into going into interviews or going to networking events or whatever it was, I felt like there's no angle I wasn't ready for. So in short, it was about accepting myself, also being honest with myself, and then working on that. So going into these environments, I was cool. That's how I've tackled it personally.
Yeah, I mean, for me, building off that, like, I think everyone who's ever walked into any assessment center or interview or whatever will have some kind of, well, obviously will be nervous, have imposter syndrome, all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, like, it was quite difficult to disconnect like the emotion of it, of like getting rejected and that kind of stuff, and then going to an assessment center and kind of like being really, as you would say, like holistic with it, and kind of looking at yourself as an asset and how you can kind of be hired, and you know what will make you stand out, what will develop your skills, that kind of stuff, rather than being emotionally attached to it, which at the beginning I kind of was when I was getting rejected a lot. So
Yeah, on the topic of imposter syndrome, I think it's one thing to note that like probably everyone here has probably experienced it at one point or another. With regards to my own personal experiences, as weird as it sounds, I literally remember waking up one day and like no longer feeling that way. I think it was, I remember, okay, so yeah, around this time last year, I remember waking up every morning thinking, yeah, today is the day I'm going to be fired from my job, simply because I might have made a small mistake or a big, I don't know, I was overthinking, but I constantly kept feeling like I'm going to get fired. Today's the day I'm going to get fired. They're going to find this huge mistake and I'm going to get fired. And I think I was speaking to my mentor and he kind of just told me about the fact that I need to stop personalizing my mistakes and start to see it as like, start to fail faster. So the quicker you start to like make these mistakes, the quicker you learn and you're able to rectify them, and you don't need to see each failure or each feedback point as like a mark of your identity, as they to say that like it's the end, like you won't die. So for me, it's being able to push through those feelings. I might feel what I feel regardless, but I'm still going to get done what I need to get done, and it's just going to help me become better. But I do understand that it is easier said than done. But that's just to say that you will feel the feelings, but you still have to push through regardless.
I think just to build upon that, yeah, I think I 100% agree with everyone who's spoken so far in terms of how it's very much a universal feeling, and I think everyone has experienced imposter syndrome at some point. And what I have found has helped me is, I guess, being honest about it with my colleagues. So like even right now on the GDL, like I had quite an honest conversation with one of my fellow future trainees, and we were saying how maybe even this current term we'd felt a bit unconfident in our abilities. And I think just being able to have those conversations and knowing that you're not the only person who feels that way, for me at least, helps to take away the imposter feeling, because if everyone's feeling like an imposter, then surely no one is.
Yeah, sorry, I just I'm also on the GDL, so I mean that hits home with me quite a lot, because I feel like the imposter syndrome thing, it never ends. Like even if you've got like a training contract or whatever stage you're at in your career or life, whatever, like I feel like you're always going to feel a certain way. Like particularly on the GDL, I just feel like it's just so hard sometimes, and like you think that everyone else gets it and you don't, or like they're at a certain stage ahead of you. So yeah, I think chatting about it with your mates and stuff helps a lot, and not bottling it in. But yeah.
I'll just add as well that yeah, definitely that topic of that point of talking to others is definitely true. Like I remember one of my friends who, when I was at university, one of my friends, she was yeah, she was very behind on like all of her assignments. Literally every assignment, her assignments were excellent, by the way. She should have got a first in all of them. The only reason she didn't was because she handed every single one of them in late. However, it was quite funny because she took part on a panel, and then one of the people from the audience was like, "Oh, you seem so put together and you're so organized," and she was just like, "What?" So yeah, no, definitely like talk to other people and try not to make assumptions about how other people are, which only puts more pressure on yourself, because there is actually other people who are probably facing the same thing as you, it's just you've not had that conversation yet. The other thing I would say is that when it comes to interviews, the way I would always see interviews is that the person who's interviewing me has never met me before. And if anything, this is a perfect opportunity for them to get to know who I am, because before the interview, all they got to know was me on a CV. Now they get to see me, they get to hear me, and I can, get across whatever it is I want to get across to them. So definitely see interviews as an amazing opportunity to kind of just showcase your best self. I think the time when it becomes difficult is sometimes after the interview, and if you are successful and you do get the role, now you have to try to showcase your best self every single day. But I think try not to worry about that. In the interview, just try to showcase your best self. This person has never met you before. They don't know who you are. They don't know the fact that you might have made a mistake, the day before or anything like that. Like you are completely a fresh new slate. And I think that can sometimes, just really, I think that can just sometimes help in terms of your own feelings when you go into something. And drama, if you have any opportunity to do like workshops around drama, definitely take it up. Like people who have those drama skills, it's very, very helpful in terms of just kind of getting past it. First of all, just showcasing yourself in the best way, and then afterwards you can work on building up that confidence.
Thank you. I'll definitely take that drama lessons point on board. I guess the next thing I'd like to focus on is, Jonathan, you mentioned Rare adopting the contextual recruitment system and how that's being used by the world's most prestigious firms. And SEO's presence is being felt on a global scale with operations in the US, Africa, China, and Vietnam. But with that being said, is this really enough? Can more be done to aid the social mobility progress, I guess? Jonathan, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, I think I can quite confidently speak on behalf of everyone at Rare in saying that, of course, a lot more can be done. I think Rare does an incredible job in addressing various issues with recruitment processes, but the issues that continue. I think, particularly from my perspective, I think more needs to be done in terms of grade requirements. I think I do still question the use of rigid grade requirements by a lot of organizations. I think in terms of moving towards inclusivity, I think a more flexible approach going forward is more ideal. So, and also I think just general outreach. I think, Rare SEO London do incredible stuff for reaching out to individuals, very capable individuals who might not know about certain careers without their intervention. But of course, more can always be done, more people can be informed. So I think to use a really corny phrase, the fight goes on, I guess.
I was just gonna say, sorry to randomly interject, but I've been getting a couple of different messages from people in the webinar and stuff. I think it's great. Like, I feel like you should use like me and hopefully all the other panelists, if they're cool with that as well, and just like use all of us as much as you can and like DM us on LinkedIn or whatever, because I feel like when I was applying and stuff, like reaching out is the best way, and like you will get ignored like a lot of the time, some of the time, but it only takes a couple of people to kind of like see something in you and kind of like speak to you and stuff. So like if anyone wants to like reach out to me and if I can help at all, feel free to like message me, and I'm happy to help.
Same here.
Rahina, do you have anything to add about SEO's presence and what else needs to be done?
Sorry, can you ask me the question again?
Is enough being done about improving social mobility in the recruitment process? And if not, what else can be done?
Yeah, I would agree a lot with what Jonathan said. I think that, yes, there is stuff being done. There is definitely things that can still be done as well. I think it also really depends when you look at the different industries. So for example, there's some industries which are doing a lot more and a lot more advanced, and other industries which are a bit slower. So for example, like the insurance sector, we're currently at SEO London, we're currently entering the insurance sector a little bit more, but yes, the insurance sector is a little bit more slower than say the banking finance side. Then again, even within finance, like asset management firms are a little bit slower than investment banks. But yeah, I would definitely say there is more being done within the firms, and there is still more that yet can be done. And hopefully by working with these, the fact that these firms are partnering with organizations such as Rare and SEO London and Upreach and several other organizations, it means that they, if they make use and utilize those relationships, it will hopefully be mutually beneficial to both organizations. Yeah, so I think that firms are doing more.
Thank you. Do any of our other speakers have anything else to add? If not, I'd like to turn focus to the various projects our speakers have taken up. So Matthew, you have spearheaded 2 platforms, Legal Lineup and the Global Tech Loop. And Tashan, you recently started a YouTube channel. Would you both like to tell us a little bit about your projects and how you're going about, I guess, being the change you both want to see? Tashan, would you like to take it?
Okay, I'll go first. My main focus and my main thing was that when it comes to us going into the sector as students or graduates, whatever, there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of barriers to entry. Speaking to people, reaching out to people isn't easy, even though you have LinkedIn, etc. So my main plan was to really demystify a load of myths and just put things in plain English. So people use YouTube, like people aren't going to use Facebook, for instance. If I go on Insta, like everything is like super plain, super clear, super consistent. Linked to that as well, I also have like workshops I do like monthly with a load of people. And again, it's really high level content, like comparing like COVID-19 to the 08 recession, but in language that we use, like language we're very used to. And similarly as well, I've also built a TC support group for people looking to get training contracts. And it's on WhatsApp, it's not on a very like stuffy forum. It's something we use, and it's a forum we use. So it's trying to just make the city tangible and really close to us, and just normalize every single conversation, and be someone who you see as someone you can hang out with. I don't know, play FIFA or be on the bus or do whatever. That's the plan of what I'm trying to do. And I think what a lot of people are trying to do online.
Yeah, well, I mean, so for me, the legal lineup, I sort of created it, gosh, it must have been like nearly a year now. And yeah, I created it because I was a non-law student coming in and I didn't really know much about the legal sector, but I didn't really feel like I was in a position to kind of give people advice solely on what I knew. So I sort of teamed up with 6 other people who'd all kind of come from different backgrounds and had different experiences, and kind of, like you sort of say, like wanted to share their kind of experiences and their knowledge of law and coming into it from different perspectives and demystifying that jargon. And we've sort of been doing it for a while now. We've done various things. We created like an internship for students last summer, where we had companies like Netflix and Google and people from those companies sort of come and all share their experiences. And we did that. And we've done a variety of different events really with like BPP and ULaw to kind of share our insight and kind of help other students who are coming through. And I think a good thing as well is that we're all kind of at different stages really. So some of us are just starting the GDL, some of us doing LPC, some of us are like still at uni, 3rd year, or doing a year abroad, that kind of thing. So it gives a bit of a broad perspective. And the Global Tech Loop is kind of more of something that I was really interested in. So I release like magazines every month with Lauren Moore on the tech sector. So we interview people, not really solely based in law. We kind of interview people in Google, like all these different companies, and we just release it and kind of share their insight of what it's like to work in those jobs. So we've done a variety of people from cybersecurity to digital marketing to anything really. And we also run events. So we ran an event for female empowerment, and we had the chief security officer from Microsoft there, and a couple of different female startup CEOs. And yeah, it's been really cool, cool experiences talking to different people and kind of learning all about this kind of stuff, because I'm obviously really interested in tech. I did like a course in AI and wrote my dissertation on cryptocurrencies. So I'm keen to learn more about that space and kind of develop my understanding, which is kind of why I started Global Tech Loop. Lauren, and the legal lineup's more stuff to do with law. But yeah, sorry for talking forever.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you. I guess to round off this discussion, what I'd like to ask all of our speakers is, what piece of guidance, I guess, would you give to students in our audience today who want to pursue a corporate career? Rukayat, do you want to start?
Sure. I think my first advice would be to, looking back at university, I think I would spend more time on things that I'm passionate about. So I think that most of the times we're made to feel like we need to just focus on our academic work. And I think, like Matthew was saying, you can draw out a lot of roles and responsibilities from your interests and passions. And I think that's kind of what makes you stand out. A number of other applicants will probably have studied something similar or be able to show those academic attributes, but what they can't show are maybe the other interests which someone who's interviewing might be interested in themselves. So like, do try to really draw on those other things. Reach out to people on LinkedIn. That's what helped me. I remember when I had an interview, I spoke to someone who, I think they presented, and I remember them from the presentation like a year later. Spoke to them, and I asked them about if there was any like new piece of technology that KPMG were using that I could perhaps mention in my interview. That was really useful. And I'm really big on being authentic. But talking about authenticity in the workplace can be a bit like political. I think one thing to think about is you get to control how much of yourself you bring to the workplace, and like use that tool to your power. So I don't want you to think that you have to be a certain way to get into these spaces. That's not the case. Like, feel free to bring your fresh perspective and diversity of thought, and it can be very much appreciated in those spaces too. Yeah, that would be all. Yeah, maybe off to Jonathan.
Yeah, completely agree with all of those things. I think what I'd add to that is, I guess, the idea that, you will get there. Everyone has a slightly different journey to, getting to their eventual job or vocation. Again, working at Rare, I have seen candidates who got the placement on the first interview. I've seen equally talented candidates who got the placement on the 11th interview. So I think when it comes to applying for these things, I think bear that in mind, that everyone has a unique journey. Everyone, here, I'm sure is equally capable of getting there, and just keep on putting yourself out there. I've worked with several candidates who just need that push, and I think that's the one thing I've taken from my personal experience with applying for firms, but also from Rare. Persevere, because you're more than capable.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you guys all said as well. I think one thing my mentor told me like before was like not to worry about what you don't have and what the person next to you has, and sort of worry about what you have and how you package that and what you can bring to the table, because ultimately that's all they see. And sort of like you guys were saying before, like it's not about being identical or being a good, like fitting into a certain thing that they need you to be. Like they want to see who you are and like all your different backgrounds and the different interests that you have at uni. So don't be afraid to kind of bring those up and draw attention to that, because that's something that you can have a conversation about. And don't worry about whether or not they'll like you for it. Just sort of try and be yourself. And another thing that kind of kept me kind of persistent with it was the fact that no one sees, like all the panelists, I'm sure, like have applied to like loads of places, and like if you look at the list of places they've all been rejected compared to the places they've got in, whether it's internships or the jobs they're in now, it's going to be a lot longer. So don't worry about not getting into places, because it only takes one for them to actually say yes and you to get through and reach that stage that you want to be at. So just keep going with it.
So I'll jump in next. My biggest thing, I'm assuming most of you guys are like around like uni stage, at that sort of age. And for me, just like you have so much time that you don't realize until you graduate, you guys have so much time. So if you have any idea if there's an initiative, just start it. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. I feel sometimes at uni, I was waiting for the perfect moment. I wanted to do podcasting, I wanted to do so many things. I just waited until I'm a second seat trainee at A&O and I have like no time to do these things. So if you have any ideas, start them now. And then it gives you chances to talk about them in your interviews, etc. And also linked to starting now on commercial awareness, like you guys are going to navigate that issue wherever you go. Even now, I navigate that issue now. And similarly, I used to try and wait for like the perfect platform. I need an FT subscription. I need to do this. I need to do that. Like if you can only read BBC News, read BBC News. If you can only access a podcast on your Spotify free account, just access it now. And the knowledge you accumulate over 1 year of just trying to do something now is far better than waiting for the perfect moment. And then, yeah, you'll be flying very soon. That's what I say.
I feel like with these platforms as well, like it doesn't even need to be law related. Like it's just got to be something you're interested in, man. Because like I feel like a lot of people right now, there's obviously this gap, this space of building your soft skills and all that kind of stuff. So people are probably trying to demonstrate their skills by starting a legal blog or that kind of thing, which is obviously great. But I just feel like you should do what you're interested in, and then that'll be something cool to talk about. And it doesn't necessarily need to be law. So I completely agree with starting something, but I think you should definitely like focus in on like what you want to learn more about, like whether it's me trying to learn more about technology or someone else trying to learn more about sports law or whatever. So yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Going off the back of that, I just wanted to say, we need to remember that like we are the new working force. So we get to change the standards of what it means to be a professional to be a professional as a millennial right now. So I think that let's like move away from what was the standard professional prototype of someone, and we get to recreate that. So like what Matthew said, it might mean for many people we have side hustles. We have other things that we're doing apart from just our 9-to-5s, and we can bring that to life with the discussions you have in your workplace.
I'd
Rahina,
probably
do you
just,
have any advice? Yeah.
yeah, as some advice, I'd probably just say widen your connections. The reason being is that at SEO London, what we tend to see with a lot of our students is that like a student will come for, let's say, like a CV workshop, and they think their CV is good and it generally is okay. But then they see the quality of everyone else's CV, and then they're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize that my CV was not as good as I thought it was, or I didn't realize that my CV needs to look a certain way or anything like that. So I think like one of the things, especially for me at uni, it's one of those dilemmas of you don't know what you don't know. And I think the only way you can get into the know is by widening your connections. So just, try to, as much as you can, find yourself informal and formal mentors, so you can actually learn about the industry, learn what kind of, careers are out there, learn about what you're interested in. And and then hopefully off the back of that, it kind of, hopefully off the back of that, you are just much more knowledgeable about where you want to go in the future and what steps you need to take to get there.
Great, thank you so much. I noticed that we have a couple of questions in the chat. So if that would it be okay just to go through a couple of those as we have some time left? Let me just see. I guess this question is addressed to Matthew. How does St Mason's culture differ to other firms?
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously, I'm not there yet because I'm future training. I'm not at the firm yet. But from what I could see when I was applying and looking at all different firms, just super easy to talk to people. Like super easy to DM people on LinkedIn for me anyway. And also like meeting up with people. Like when I was up in Leeds, like I went to the stand, like I met them. I followed up, like I went to all the different events, and then someone met me for a coffee with the firm. Like it just seemed like corporate firm, like big corporate firm, but like super small culture, pretty like chilled and easy to talk to. So for me, like the culture element was really important, which is important to everyone really when they apply. Like, and everyone says I'm sort of applying to you for culture. But for me, like I got on really well with the graduate recruitment team as well as just everyone I met at the firm. So I think when you're meeting all the people that it's going well, that it's probably a good place for you to apply. And I also think as well, like just the practice areas and everything that's going on at that firm really interested me. But if you are interested in St Mason's, like more than happy to drop me a message and ask me any questions about the psychometric test that you've got to do, or any other stages of the application. I'd be happy to kind of get back to you.
Great, thank you. I guess one of the last questions is addressed to Rukayat. Did you explore any other industries other than consulting?
Yeah, so my undergrad was in biomedical sciences, and I knew for sure that I did not want to work in a lab. Like I enjoy the theory part, but the practical side I didn't enjoy, and that was essentially what jobs were in. So whilst I was in university, I was thinking about other avenues that I wanted to explore, and consulting kind of matched my skill set. But consulting is very broad. So there's like a multitude of service lines within consulting. You can be a management consultant. I'm in technology risk consulting. There's advice. There's if you search within consulting, you would actually realize the various service lines that can feed within there. So I would say it's a good avenue to explore like different skill sets, and you can, if you want to, specialize within specific fields.
Great, thank you so much. I guess that brings us to the end of our panel event today.
There was one question I did want to answer. So someone asked, what do you look for when searching for your firm? And I wanted to mention about values. So like, I think when I was applying for jobs whilst I was at university, I had to kind of like spin it on my head and remind myself that as much as I do want to find a job, I don't want to be a slave to my job. So it's important where I go. So I started to think more from a value-based perspective, where I started to look at how does the firms I'm applying to align with my own values? And then from there, I was able to actually personalize my applications. So for example, KPMG, they were like rated really highly on the social mobility index. Social mobility is very important to me. And so I was able to draw out that within my application because essentially they're aligned with my values. So I really want to be here.
Great, thank you so much.
I
So
just-
I guess,
I
yep.
just wanted to say as well, thanks for kind of the opportunity to come and like listen to all of you and, you know, just join in and stuff. Rukia from a science background. I'm terrible at science. I can never do science, but you know, we're all from different like intellectual backgrounds and different, and it's really interesting to kind of hear everyone's different experiences and kind of how we all came to law really, and how everyone in the audience wants to come from law. I'm sure you all come from different backgrounds, and our experiences are our experiences, but yours are yours. So, I mean, we've all got a lot to learn from you as well. So it's really exciting that you're all applying. And like, I was really excited last year when I was applying, but nervous as well. But sort of like what Rukia was saying earlier, I feel like we are kind of the new workforce and stuff. So remember that you kind of set the tone as well. And like, it's your own abilities that will get you to where you want to be.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else anyone would like to add? Shannon? Shannon,
Yeah,
did you
no,
want to?
I just wanted to put forward a question to all the speakers here. First of all, I just wanted to take the time to just say thank you ever so much to everyone who spoke at this event. Like, I very much appreciate you all dedicating so much of your time to speak, and I've been very, very much impressed by what each and every single one of you have had to say. So thank you ever so much for that. As for my question, I basically just wanted to kind of raise the idea of mobility, but particularly this notion or concept that mobility implies some sort of a zero-sum game, in that basically in order to have upward mobility, there must be some downward mobility. I wanted to get your views on how much you think that is actually the case, and if it is or if it isn't. Can we actually imagine a world in which there are more people heading up to the top without not as many people heading downwards, if that makes any sense?
That's such a good question. Are you suggesting your model of mobility has to challenge the way current corporate organizations operate? So the way most corporate organizations operate now is like, you're going to have your partner, you will have your directors, your head of departments, etc. So like, yes, what you're saying could happen, but the way we work will have to change. I think it has to be more collaborative and be more of a level playing field. But the chain of command within work, especially in law firms are so like hierarchical. There's partner, senior associate, trainee, whatever. So like, the corporate structure and capitalism will have to change, in my opinion, for that to happen. Or you create your own sort of ways of working, etc. And I feel like we're seeing that sort of emancipation online with like influencers now. Like, you have people who are getting like five-figure contracts, and they're just working for themselves, like operating, like working on a B2B basis with like not a lot of experience. So in short, yes, I think it can happen, but in our corporate spaces, I think it's going to be far slower. A lot of big corporate organizations are really slow to do anything, but you can make that change yourself, doing your own thing, and you probably will make more money than these organizations than you would have as an employee in like half the time. That's what I think. It may not be the answer you really wanted, but I think that's the reality of it personally.
No, thank you. That was really good. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I think as well, like although there's this hierarchical structure, like there's still new roles like cropping up, like sort of like what you were saying with like contracting and stuff like that. And even legal technologist roles, like maybe like 15 years ago, you'd never see a coder in a law firm. And right now, maybe you wouldn't even see that many now, but like maybe in 10, 15 years time or 10 years time, like there will be a lot more different roles at law firms. Like whilst there is that trainee associate legal director role route, I think there could be change eventually that would mean that it could kind of coexist rather than like one depreciating while one goes up. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you ever so much for that. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you to the both of you.
I guess that's all we have time for today, unfortunately. I'm sure our audience will join us in thanking our speakers for their time. And just for those in the audience, please keep an eye out for our events on social media. I'm sure we have quite a few coming up soon. Thank you for joining, and thank you again to our speakers for coming. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in.
And I thank you ever so much
No,
for
it's
taking up
okay.
your time to
No,
actually
no, it's
present
fine.
this. We really do appreciate it because we know, like, just to go for what I think was it an hour and a half. It's just straight asking questions, trying to keep up the momentum, keep up with, like, a good atmosphere. It's a pretty challenging and daunting task, but you managed to do it quite well. So thank you ever so much for that.
It's
We really do
okay.
appreciate it.
No worries.
And I was just saying, sorry, I was on mute.
Hello.
You should host more of our events. Really, really good.